second, Steve. Let me count you in because I'm going to start recording. In 3, 2.
Welcome everybody to another exciting Total Seminars Discord study hall. My name is Steve Nicholson. I'm here tonight to talk with you and all of our fantastic members here in Discord about physical security. It's something that you're gonna, we all encounter physical security pretty much on a day-to-day basis, and a lot of this is gonna seem familiar to you, but just keep in mind, as with everything CompTIA, it requires a greater dive, right? A deeper dive into the actual subject matter to actually pass some of those questions that you may come up with, or may come up against on the CompTIA A+ exam. So tonight, particularly, we're going to be covering the 1102 side of things, which is where physical security objectives reside, specifically objectives 1.1 and 2.1. And we're going to go ahead and start with a quote from a very funny man, but it kind of encompasses the idea behind physical security when it comes to IT stuff, right? If you think about what Bill Murray's talking about here, drafts are so tall that they are physically removed from the threat of a fart cloud. And you can kind of think about your physical security to protect your digital assets in the same manner. You don't want any overlap. You don't want any chances. You want there to be multiple levels of security, multiple levels of redundancy, and you never want to have your head in the fart cloud, all right? So when we talk about safeguarding our assets, we got to define that physical security at the bare minimum, right, needs to always cover a couple things. Number 1, 2, and 3 are actually people, property, and assets. If you're implementing physical security controls that don't protect or fail to protect one of those 3 things, then your physical security controls are not very good, to be honest with you. You always got to protect the people, always got to protect the property, the areas within, and the assets. We also want to make sure that we have comprehensive coverage when it comes to physical security. So we're going to do point security and area security. Let me go back. Sorry about that. Point security would be basically, think of the president giving the speech, okay? And if you ever watch him as they're filming that speech, he'll have like 3 or 4 Secret Servicemen within arm's reach, pretty much, right? Those are point securities. They're protecting that direct general zone around the president. But if the camera pans out a bit, we can see snipers on rooftops and police with barricades and and lights on their automobiles all around the White House or wherever he's giving the speech at. Those are area security. So it's good to have a really strong point security, like a really diehard lock or a vault where your computing equipment resides within. But if the outside or your area security is poor, someone's eventually going to get through that point security. So make sure point and area. And then this one, basically covert and overt. You're going to have these very high-tech attacks that you deal with, where you're going to have people that are like, Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible, hanging from the wall or from the wire, trying not to let a drop of sweat hit this thermal sensitive floor. Those are covert actions. Okay, those are going to be harder to plan for, but you still need to have that physical security in place to combat those. And then you're going to have people that are just smash and grabbers, right? You're going to have those people that just drive their car into your bank and try to pull out the ATM or whatever. Those are overt actions. And when you're considering a physical security plan or policy, or just trying to implement some controls to make yourself or your business more secure, it's important to take both into consideration, because there are criminals that do covert acts and there are criminals that do overt acts. And when we talk about creating a physical security kind of policy or layout, kind of how do I implement that infrastructure for my business, we want to follow 4 primary principles. And the first one is quite simply, we want to deter. And let me just take a moment here and say, some of these controls that you're going to see, some of our deterrences could also be applicable to our next principle, okay? So there's a lot of overlap, okay? Like, for instance, we're going to touch on video cameras. Well, those can also record and be used to respond to an attack, but they can also be a deterrent, because if a criminal sees a video camera up high, they might not be so inclined to break into a business, right? So some of these have some overlap, but we're going to start with deterrence. Its whole goal is to discourage potential threats from targeting a facility, area, or personnel. Very simple. Deter, it's in the name. And deterrence controls, by and large, are going to be exclusively visible, as we're going to notice right here. Here's some examples of them. We have walls, gates, and bollards. And for those of you who don't know what bollards are, I apologize. I actually forgot to put an image into the slideshow about it. But these are bollards. We see them everywhere. Probably everywhere in the United States, probably since the Oklahoma City bombing, but they prevent a car from getting very close to possibly a certain secure facility, a building, a place where a lot of people might be. They prevent cars and trucks from going down certain roads, so they don't hit pedestrians or go the wrong way. But these are bollards. So when you see that, you know what that is. I'll find it eventually. There it is. And we also have, again, walls, gates, and bollards. And I want you to take a moment and take a look at this wall. Now, this is a very formidable wall. If I was a criminal and looking to break into a facility, I would probably pick any other one. Well, we don't see like any concertina wire or razor wire, barbed wire, anything like that up here. What we do see is a very tall, very solid structure for a wall here. I would estimate this is at least 6 feet tall at the very least. Built solid concrete, probably rebar in between it, metal supports holding this, whatever this wired material is. Maybe it's electrified. I don't know. It looks like there might be some sensors here, unless that's just to feed the wires for the cameras. But again, you can see cameras up high too, right? Not within arm's reach, because that kind of makes it really easy for a criminal to break those deterrence controls. And you'll also notice these little lights, which is really cool because illumination at night really also helps deter criminals as well. This is a very solid wall. I would venture to, I have no idea where, I actually used AI to grab a lot of these images, so I have no idea where the AI grabbed this from, but I would venture to guess that either whatever this place houses, it's trying really hard to keep all of it in, or trying to keep really hard from keeping anybody from getting in. So that is a very formidable wall. And we also have things like signs and warnings, okay? Signs and warnings, we see them all over the place. Probably don't really pay attention to them very much these days. But something as simple as a neighborhood crime watch, right? Hey, welcome to Laurel Glen. Guess what? We have a neighborhood crime watch. Now, if you're a criminal, or let's say not even a criminal, you're a human being like me. If you've ever lived in a place that's a neighborhood crime watch, what does that really mean? That means you're going to have a bunch of nosy neighbors, which is excellent for your physical security, right? Because they're going to spot these things. And that's essentially what that sign is there to enforce. It's supposed to say, hey, we got a bunch of nosy people here. You probably want to commit crimes elsewhere. Then we have a little more serious sign, right? Hey, this is a military installation. Everything on this base is subject to search and seizure by federal directive and the Internal Security Act of 1950 and blah, 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 blah. And hey, by the way, if we have to, use of deadly force is authorized, okay? Again, that's a more serious sign. If I'm a criminal, I'm, again, not going anywhere near whatever that sign is protecting. And then you have a sign like this, which is conveniently located on my neighbor's property. But yeah, violators will be shot. No trespassers. Violators will be shot. Survivors will be shot again. That is a very serious threat. Even if that sign is just a joke, even if I know that guy and I'm friendly with him, I'm not taking that chance because that warning is there, right? And I need to take heed of it. And then also a great deterrence control that not a lot of people talk about are trained personnel. We know we have our guards, right? Our gate guards, our armed guards, whatever they may be. Those are trained security personnel. But another very good avenue are your regular personnel. If you're a business owner and you're training them on these security tactics that hackers are using, or, people might possibly, disguise themselves as a UPS worker to try to get trade secrets from you, or maybe call up and try to vish you, voice solicit you on the phone and get some information. If you're training your users, your employees to recognize this stuff, they're going to be a lot less susceptible to it. And I can promise you, word will get out. If you foster like a security-centric culture at your business or your employment or within your house or whatever you're trying to protect, that word's going to get out. Nobody's going to mess with that. They're going to be like, we should probably pick another business because those employees, they're on top of it. They know exactly what they're doing. They know all of our tactics, techniques, and procedures, and we're probably going to have a rougher time with them than we are one of their competitors down the road. So let's not even mess with them. That security-centric culture is really, really important. Principle number 2, is our detection controls. And again, our whole goal with our detection is to identify and alert personnel to potential threats or some sort of unauthorized activity. That is our whole goal, our kind of larger encompassing goal with physical security is just we're protecting and trying to stop any unauthorized access, no matter what it may be. So we have our detection, and detection controls actively monitor environments, which is key. You'll see that possibly on the exam if you get a question on this. But I remember actually having a specific question like this, which is why I bring it up. But they monitor environments, right? They scan rooms or areas, that type of thing. They monitor for temperature differentials or pressure pressure differentials on the floor, or maybe some sort of unnatural vibration on a fence that alerts them to somebody's trying to cut it or climb it. There's all sorts of different detection tools out there. Some of them, of course, we're familiar with, like surveillance, right? I don't know if any of you guys have ever been to a concert or a theme park, which is like, I think the theme park is primarily where I see these portable, what are they called? I looked them up. They're police portable observation towers. But I see these all the time, and these are a fantastic detection control, right? Because if there is actually somebody in there, they've got a great view of the entire area and can respond accordingly, can give call outs like an eye in the sky. That's why helicopters are so useful when identifying physical threats or, something like that going on, is because they have that eye in the sky. They can make use of a large amount of data at once and zone in on somebody. But also, like I was talking about earlier, this kind of parlays into deterrence too, right? Because I'm not sure if anybody's in there. I can't really see, right? A lot of times those windows on those pods, on those towers are darkened or tinted too. But just by having it there, that's also acting as a deterrent control, right? Same thing like if you have a police officer that lives in your neighborhood. Probably 99 times out of 100 that I've lived near a police officer, he or she parks his car off the driveway, like at a corner or something, on the corner of their property or something, just to slow people down around them, because just the very presence or possibility of police presence, is a great deterrent to crime. So these pods are a huge thing, and you'll see these everywhere. And then, of course, we have our cameras. And the important thing about these cameras to look at is not only are they, we have redundancy there, right? We have a very small window where there could be anybody that would not be seen by it, but they're also real high up. They're up on a pole. They're removed from the physical reach of a normal human being or somebody who doesn't have time to, come down the road with the ladder and set it up and rip those off, which hopefully some of your other detection controls would have already picked up by then. So very, very interesting placement there. And then we also have our IDSs. If you're getting into cybersecurity, you've probably heard about intrusion detection systems. Just know that, like the cyber people stole that from the physical security side years ago. There have been EIDSs, which is external intrusion detection systems, and IIDSs, which is internal ones, for many, many years securing physical facilities. And just kind of a little term that got parlayed over into the digital side of things. But EIDS, an external intrusion detection system would be something like this sensor on a fence. Right? This one is sitting there. Obviously, you can see this is probably guarding some sort of data facility, maybe a prison. It's really hard to tell. But that little sensor is going to detect any unnatural vibrations. And a lot of times, and report it back, right? Alert to the security to that. But a lot of times these ones too, and I can't tell because it's not on the other side, but a lot of times these will run a small current through as well. And they can tell by just somebody grabbing it or putting their hand on it or putting a snip to it to try to cut it. Just that little difference in current running through there, they can tell and alert to that as well. So we have our EIDSs like that. We have our internal intrusion detection systems, like we've probably a lot of us have in our home. If you have security systems, SimpliSafe or any of that stuff, you have these little motion detectors. You might see them in offices too. A lot of times they're used strictly to control lights. They're like a cost-saving measure. So if you walk into an office, a light might pop on. Well, that's motion sensor sensing you in there, and then it'll pop off when you're not in the area for a minute or two. But they're also excellent for identifying possible unauthorized access or threats. And we have these other sensors nowadays. Not sure if you really noticed, but if you walk around near a federal building, sometimes banks, anything that has its own closed off access to, say, like an underground garage or a warehouse drop-off area or something like that, you might notice these little devices in the road, and these are magnetometers. This is typically on the exam, but it's just a small device that they dig out a hole in the road, and let's say a company's open till 6 p.m., right? Accepting deliveries till 6 p.m., and at 7:30, a truck drives over this unauthorized, the gates are closed and everything. This will alert that a large metal mass, and typically identify it to some degree, has passed over the magnetometer. So these are placed in areas where people shouldn't normally have access, and they alert back. And again, they're very simple. They last for, I think some of them I checked just on their internal batteries alone, last between 5 and 10 years. So you can dig that hole, pop one in there, pop the cap on, and that thing will alert you for quite a long time to the presence of, unauthorized vehicles or, large metal things, which who knows what else it may be, but those are very cool too. And then our alarm systems, and with our technology these days, I'm not sure if you guys are noticing it, but I'm seeing a massive convergence of technologies. We're seeing platforms being created and supported and sold that have as much stuff jammed into it as possible. And this new Silent Night system by Honeywell is a perfect example of that. It's an all-in-one fire suppression. It has like a halon option if you have that outfitted in your restaurant or building, whatever. But it also does smoke sensing. It also does physical security alarms. It can do window shattering and unnatural noise in the house and just all sorts of stuff. But these are examples of these alarm systems that you know, as a burgeoning IT person, are going to need to get your hands on, and they're excellent. Our third principle is delay. I'm already 15 minutes in. This one might run a little long. I apologize, but stay with me. I have some payoff videos at the end. So again, delay. We're all talking about slowing down intruders and providing time for response actions to be initiated. That's all we're trying to do here. Get time to slow down the attacker or the unauthorized access as much as possible so that we can implement more strict controls or, you know, send a response team, things like that. Again, we're just trying to impede it as much as possible. At this point, if they've already passed through deterrent detection, a lot of times these delay controls, their sole purpose is in the name, delay. The access has already happened. We're just trying to slow them down as much as possible. And some examples of delay controls, obviously, internally, we have a lot of badge readers these days on doors, RFID. I don't think NFC really gets used much these days for badge readers, at least in professional environments, but you don't have RFIDs. RFID badge readers, we have a lot of things too. I don't know if any of you have worked for a company where like a UB key or a physical security key is required to actually log into the system as well as a username and password. So again, that's another example of an access control system. Biometrics. Biometrics are becoming very, very big, not only with businesses, but also with individual users. I notice more and more of my students, I talk to them each batch that I get and ask them how they're kind of implementing their own physical and logical security controls. And a lot of them use biometrics. You know, they use a retina scan on iPhone or thumbprint scanner or, you know, face scan a lot of times. I know even a student has like a Windows laptop that scans his face to log in. And you know, one thing I want to make you aware of with that is those are excellent. They're great to keep the bad guy out. But if you're talking about physically securing your personal device, you have to think above and beyond just that. And what I mean by that is these unique physical characteristics that make you up, your thumbprint, your retinal scan, your face, right? All that stuff are physical assets that belong to you. And physical assets that belong to you can be searched and seized under the Fourth Amendment. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to commit a crime. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that someone, if you have just biometric authentication, can eventually compel you, either legally through the Fourth Amendment, like they can with DNA and everything else, to give your thumbprint or give your retinal scan or give your face scan, or maybe under duress, right? But somebody can eventually force you to do that. If you have a PIN or a password, it is much more secure because guess what? I just forgot it, right? So keep that in mind when that plays into on a larger scale securing things. Biometrics are great, but we're already finding new things out every day. If you search about 4 or 5 years ago, a whole team from MIT, one of their advanced research labs, just determined that people don't really have completely unique thumbprint or fingerprints. In fact, people have these little identifying markers on fingerprints, and a lot of times people can share between 3 and 5 of those similar markers and have completely different fingerprints. So you know, all of this biometric stuff is still coming out as the technology improves as well. Okay, man traps. We've all seen these. If you've walked into a bank, federal building, office building, or something like that, the whole goal of this is to have 2 locking doors where if I see somebody walk in there with a rifle or something, I can hit the button, lock those doors, and they're trapped in that room until police can come. A lot of times, you know, in this instance, these definitely look bulletproof. They're at least double or triple paned, maybe even. But you can see they're heavy-duty doors built on solid metal structures, and their whole goal is to trap somebody in there. Here's another example of one. This one not in a bank, but in a data facility. If you notice, we have a long, slim room here with a bunch of locked cabinets, each behind it another server or piece of equipment. And we can't see this backside, but we can probably guess it's pretty well locked down as well. If you come in here, that outside door on this side locks. You have cameras facing you anywhere you go, and everything else is locked. You are trapped in that room. If you are not authorized to be there, it's going to be incredibly difficult to get out. And that is the whole point of a man trap. And locking mechanisms. Again, when we talk about delay controls, the more advanced your locks, you know, And if your doors are as rigid, your walls are as rigid, your windows are shatterproof and all that, a very well-placed lock or series of locks can really slow down an attacker. And you've got, these electronic ones, which some of them are worth their weight, some really aren't. I don't know why this particular one, the AI chose, has 4 deadbolts. That seems really weird to me, especially 3 and then a 4th one separate. I don't know. But, we also have electronic locks like these two to exterior doors with a high-up deadbolt. And then we also have really complex locks like this. Like, this is an amazing man trap. There is something in here that they want to really protect because, I mean, look at this. This is definitely a concrete wall we can see, right? There's brick over here. I would assume this is concrete here, but I would assume they'd have to have concrete and reinforcement to even hold a door like this. But I mean, look at that. Talk about a man trap. You walk in there and that thing locks. I mean, good luck getting out, right? So those are our delay controls. Now let's talk about our response controls. Again, our whole goal here with response controls is the rapid and coordinated, keyword coordinated, response to minimize the impact of a physical security breach. Because at this point, if you're responding to one, it has what? It has already happened, right? And so our goal should be to address whatever's happening on the response side and mitigate any potential damage from that security incident. And you probably know a lot of these controls, but security personnel and police, right? You have something as simple as, well, they're highly trained, but this is Japan's Cyber Terrorist Incident Response Team. I think I got that right, CTIRT. But this is their Cyber Terrorist Incident Response Team. Really interesting that to me, that this was the publicity photo that they chose to advertise because they have shields. But again, this is their cyber terrorist incident response team here, highly trained individuals that would come in and handle that type of a threat. Or you might be lucky enough to have an enforcement droid 209 series. I'm not sure if any of you guys have one of those mucking about in your garage, but ED 209s are also great response controls. We also have communication systems, right? High-end fiber, things that can relay systems or relay communication quickly is key, especially in the event of a physical breach. For you to be able to get personnel, not just personnel like security personnel, but also your team that handles this, right? You should have some sort of incident, if you're a large enough company, you should have some sort of incident response planning going on. Hey, that nuclear reactor 40 miles down the road blows up. What are we going to do to make sure we're safe and our business continues? You have all these scenarios that you should be working on. And if you're not in a business, if you're still working your way there, at least keep these thoughts in the back of your head because they're going to be useful to your employer and you're going to look like you know what you're talking about because you do. And also communication systems like this, like a backup sat phone, right? For a company, if somebody cuts the phone lines and hey, for some reason digital cell phone signals are jammed, right? Someone's jamming 4G and 5G. Hey, we've got backup. We can still call for help. We can still exfiltrate data if we need to. We can still do normal things that we need to do to implement these response controls in the event of a physical breach. And again, planning. This is a really silly, cheesy, canned image here, but really you should be doing a lot of planning with your people. There are tons of resources online for scenarios you can do and little kits you can build to actually respond to everything. But having everybody on the same page, as well as having them have like an SOP or a manual they can go back to, because guess what? Someone's going to be on maternity leave one day. Someone's going to be sick one day when something happens. Everybody needs to know where to access that information and pull off that response plan. And again, this really helps. Okay, so we've talked about kind of how everything works. Let's look at like a blueprint of a well-done physically secure facility. So here's the legends over here, and I'm going to kind of go over everything quickly, but one key thing I want you to show, this is the data room, right? Technically a secure data facility. And these are little offices around. We'll notice that every window, right, has glass break sensors in it. Every room has motion detectors in it. And that's good because, hey, somebody might want to get into the secure data facility by breaking this window here. Maybe somebody hasn't checked this sensor in 6 months, hasn't replaced the battery. Maybe the sensor's just busted. Maybe it just didn't detect it. They have redundancy here. They have a motion detector. They can say, hey, we didn't get a glass break sensor alert, but in Office 4, we are getting a motion alert, and it's, after hours or whatever, we need to investigate. Another good thing here is you'll notice there are cameras. Every possible path you could have. A person's goal is to get into this room right here. And so no matter what path they take into that, to get to that, they're going to be on camera somewhere, okay? And then furthermore, once we start pushing in here, let's say they come into reception. I mean, it's going to be incredibly hard to get past all these security controls. So we can see there's card readers right here. There's also double card reader on this door to get into the entrance. There's a card reader with keypad to get into the data facility. On the actual server racks themselves, there's a biometric reader. Oh, by the way, there's 3 cameras facing everywhere. Oh, and by the way, in case you want to compromise the alarm, access, or CCTV systems, guess what? That's located inside the secure data facility as well. Oh, and we've also air-gapped the walls. So have fun with that. That's a very good, secure diagram there. I like whoever created this. I like where they're going with this, okay? But sometimes not all of our security controls can work, right? Sometimes there's just, if you ever get into lockpicking, you know, like the whole reason that lockpicking is actually possible is because of loose tolerances, right? Machines can't craft things just perfectly enough for everything to be as secure as they say they are. And the same thing goes with all of our devices, digital or otherwise. And we're always going to have some way to exploit something, and the key is to be prepared for that. And so I have like 4 short videos I'm going to show you that are really fun. In this particular one, the team goes through and uses what's called an under door tool, which is just a wire on a metal rod, like a thin metal rod kind of. And you can actually go under a door, slide it up as you're going to see, and open a door from the inside with it. And this is still a real big problem in hotels. So here, we'll watch how this happens. Takes 5-10 seconds. Slides it under, puts it up, and he can see he's head level. He's pushing on with his head on the door as well to give it a little pressure. But he's head level with the lever, slides it over, pulls it down, unlocks. And now we look at from the other side here in a second, you can see how this works. So again, perfectly secure door, right? Has a badge reader, all that other stuff. Very small little gap at the bottom. We still found a way to exploit it and get into a room we shouldn't have access to. And here's that under door tool coming in, sliding over to the handle, and pulling down on that lock. And again, he had his head on the actual door itself, which gave the pressure that he needed. We also have to realize that a lot of times when we build technology, sometimes it's not good technology. And sometimes we have a rapid adoption of crappy technology in the industry, kind of like these. If you've ever been to a hospital or sometimes, you know, office buildings or whatever, they have these little sensors up here. And the point of these sensors, they're called request to exit sensors. The point of these sensors is they're supposed to, like, they originated, in hospitals. And their whole point was that, you know, a nurse or somebody's pushing a cart with somebody. They can't, they can't have time to stop the cart, badge in, hold the door with one hand, that kind of thing. And so these request to exit sensors were basically meant to sense a human approaching them. And when it senses a human, unlock and open the doors. Well, turns out, you can hear him locking it, pulling it, and it unlocks. Turns out they're so poorly built that they don't even care if it's a human. In fact, what they're doing is just sensing temperature differences between the ambient air. And so they're just seeing a different temperature cloud coming at them. And they're like, okay, let's unlock. But it doesn't even matter if it's hot air or warm air or even within the range of internal ambient temperature that a human would have. They just shot canned air through there, which is incredibly cold, especially upside down for it to produce that cloud, and it unlocked. I've seen people use spit whiskey through those little gaps, and it unlocks. So here, watch him lock it, shut the door, jiggle on it so you can hear it locked, and watch him spray.
Right there.
Oh, sorry, I went back. Right in, okay? So request exit sensors, not really doing the greatest thing. Also, you're gonna find that human beings in general are pretty damn amazing creatures. Like, there are some very unique people out there with some very unique knowledge and skill sets, like RenderMan here. I put this in here, it takes about 30 seconds to get through, but just look at how this man gets out of handcuffs.
Right there is fine.
Actually do it with the black background. Or no, we'll blend it.
That's the handcuffs here. Yeah, that's fine. It's fine this way.
Do you want me to lock it up?
This is great. Okay, normal. But not too terribly tight.
Oh, right.
I need to rotate my wrist.
How's that?
RenderMan in cuffs. This is good.
Like everything RCMP, we need him to
I know.
We don't need him again.
How's that?
No, tell him. I can't take
All right.
another hour ahead.
Alright. So you got it?
Yeah.
Alright. Locked. Okay.
You can be there?
Oh,
Did you catch that?
Yeah.
Woo!
Excellent.
Woo.
I pass through TSA with this all the time.
Nice.
Rock on.
Way to go.
So I can't exactly bend like that, but there are people that can, as he just showed us. And lastly,
This is a Kryptonite Evolution 2000 lock. I used to use this to lock up my bike around here in Seattle until I found out that you can take a big pen and just remove the top and just pop it into the lock and just do a couple of little quick twists and turns, and voila, your lock and your bike is completely compromised. So, way to go, Kryptonite. This is...
I actually find it pretty amusing that that lock is called Kryptonite. So again, we're going to have security controls that we need to implement that might not be always the best at the time, or they might get vastly outdated, or there might not have been created right in the first place, as we just saw with that Kryptonite lock and request to exit sensors and all that other stuff. The goal, though, is to have those 4 principles in place as much as possible so that you have those multiple overlapping layers of security redundancy. And again, I say this all the time to my students: your digital security matters not if I can walk into your facility and leave with your server. So I'm going to say thank you. If you like this type of training, if you want to see more of it, scan that QR code. Mike and I have an excellent CompTIA A+ certification series on Udemy, and also the Total Seminars Discord. We are here every week offering training on, really deep dive, cool training on A+, Net+, Security+. We've got some other stuff in the works in the next couple months, but thanks for being there, and hope to see you next time. And now we're going to do the AMA. How is everybody? Open those mics up.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve.
Hey, Patty, how are you?
Great job.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Jose. So the goal of this, just so you guys know, if you like this, what we're going to do is, now that we've talked about how we physically secure things, on a kind of macro level, next time I'm up on the cycle, which I think is in 4 weeks, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but the next time I'm up, I want to talk about how we actually compromise all those things that we just talked about tonight. And then the following time I'm up, we're going to talk logical security controls, right? The how do we secure the digital side of things. And then after that one, we're going to talk about how we compromise those logical security controls. Because I want you to, again, you need that blue side, that blue team knowledge. You need that defense knowledge, right? How to secure, how to lock down, how to protect things. But you also need to understand those tactics, techniques, and procedures that are used by the hackers, by those red teamers. And so I want you to have both experiences. So that's kind of like a broad outlook on the horizon for the next couple months of the Core 2 side of things. Any questions, comments, concerns? Does anybody have an Enforcement Droid 209 at home in their garage? I'm incredibly jealous if you do.
Guys, you can voice your questions to Steve, or you can post questions or comments in the chat.
Did you see the question, Steve, about the new mini A+ certs?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. Is it Nigel? Yeah, we heard about those. I brought that up last week during Dave's session. It's pretty interesting. We're still not sure. We talked about it as a company, Total Seminars. We've had a few meetings about it. We're not really sure what the goal of CompTIA is. We're not sure if they're going to offer like just certifications for those little subsections, or they're going to have modular training that goes along with it as well. But I put out a poll on my LinkedIn. If you're interested, take a look. I'm trying to gauge if students would be interested in those little mini defined topics. Instead of studying for the A+ overall, would you be interested in a course that just does A+ cyber or A+ coding, or all that other stuff? So yeah, welcome to hear your thoughts on that. It is interesting. We're still not sure how that fits into what we do here, but whatever it is, we're going to do a bang-up job of it.
Looked to me like it might be certifications.
So sub-certs? Okay.
So, as opposed to an exam, just take the course and get a...
It's interesting then, because so what is somebody, let's say somebody wants to do one of the little sub-certs and then eventually go on to the larger A+, does like any of like the section, do they get credit for that, or do they have to? It's weird. So you have to take either 8 individual A+ mini certs, or you can just take the one larger, well, I guess the 2 larger exams for the A+. Yeah.
it's all speculation because we don't know if there are any actual exams, certification exams
Mm.
associated with those, or if it's just a part of the training that they're offering where there's a certificate at the end. So
Makes sense. Yeah.
more clarity is coming from them, I'm sure, but I haven't heard anything more about it than that.
It's interesting. Interesting. What questions do we have? You're welcome, Nige. Am I saying that right? Nige? Nige? Yeah, more things to hang on the office wall.
One thing that
Nigel, okay.
One thing about this that's interesting is that I was working with a company once that wanted to do some Security Plus training, and they were looking at hiring high school kids that had Security Plus, and their first job for the company was going to be nothing more than walking around the company. It was on several floors, doing a security check on all the computers every night, making sure there were no USB things plugged in.
Yep.
It was all physical security stuff was their job, and they said it would be for at least a year.
Yeah. If you guys study, cybersecurity, especially like industrial, I'm fascinated with industrial control security, industrial system security, like the security of our nuclear power plants and our electrical grids and stuff like that. One of the most successful and most advanced and most highly targeted attacks was Stuxnet. And it was it was such an advanced attack that if you put it in any other facility, even ones that had the exact same equipment that they were using, that the firmware exploited, the malicious firmware exploited, even if you put it in another facility, the exact same equipment, everything else, it wouldn't go off. It was made for that specific facility. And it all started because the hacker or the group of hackers dropped a couple USB drives that said like financials 2007 on them out in the parking lot, employee parking lot. What does someone do, right? Human beings, we make mistakes. He comes in, picks it up, plugs it right in, and that was it. Stuxnet was in. And it was just a matter of time before they started shutting down those Iranian nuclear facilities. So, if you want a fun deep dive, look up Stuxnet, Stuxnet. And again, that all started by a very simple social engineering of dropping a USB drive on the ground. So, Kathy, I completely believe that there's companies out there paying people very well to make sure that all the systems are physically secured at night.
Well, it makes for a good entry-level job for somebody that graduates from high school and wants to do an IT pathway and is just starting.
Yep. And especially if like they found like the just really never connected on coding. I have a lot of problems with my students. A lot of my students at the college I teach for, most of them just do not fit into the programming or coding mode. They just don't like it. So especially if you have a student that's tried certain different things and wants to still get their feet wet in cyber, that's an excellent way. I love that. What other questions we have? I know you guys got more. I feel that in any industry, the weakest link is often the people who work. Yep, that's absolutely true no matter what. Yep. Well-trained user base is going to be your strongest asset, no matter what multi-million-dollar security system you can put in place, no matter any type of physical or logical security control you implement is peanuts compared to a well-trained workforce. If you train your users, your employees, your friends, your family, whatever, you impart that knowledge on them, they're not going to fall for those scams. They're going to think twice before clicking those links. They're going to be a little more, or they're going to be hopefully a lot more reserved with the amount of information they share, right? Just all those things. They're going to be better all around about recognizing those threats. And a well-trained workforce is the number one thing. You're absolutely right, Nigel.
Hey, Steve, are there, on the performance-based questions in security in A+, are there ever anything related to like the floor plan you showed, the graphic with the floor plan? Are there ever any questions like that you know of? Or how might some of this information be manifested on the exam as a question? Is it within the performance-based questions ever that you know of, or?
So I haven't experienced it. I'll be honest with you. I think taken the A+ 4 or 5 times now, all the way back to I'm still legacy. So I've taken it a bunch of times. All my PBQs, each time that I can remember, at least the last 3 times, were printer related and cabling related. So they like showed a particular tool and an endpoint, and how do we connect those? Pick the cable, pick the termination, pick the tool to use. So those have been all my experience with A+ PBQs over the last couple of generations. So they may have stuff like this in. I don't know how deep those PBQs go. I know that the Total Seminars, that testing simulator, Total Sims, cover a large variety of the PBQs for the A+ that you'll experience, but I'm not sure particularly if they do like a site layout survey like that.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah, it might be. Definitely like the controls, the security controls, deter, detect, delay, and respond are going to be there, or should be in there, as well as all the individual equipment we went through. If we look at, Dave posted it earlier here. Hold on. If we look here, there's very few things. I mean, key fobs and, we covered some of this stuff, palm print. I don't even know if any of that's even used anymore. But key fobs we're going to talk about next time when we talk about how some of this stuff gets broken in. So we're going to talk about RFID cloning and stuff. That's a very common threat these days, is if you have a security guard or something, I know pen testing companies will go in with like backpacks with RFID cloners in it and try to get as close as possible at security guard, reach out, give them a hug, whatever it may be, slap them a high five and clone that card. And then that's how they gain access. So I'm leaving that for next time, but we covered a large portion of that objective here. Lighting, I should have focused a little more on lighting, but.
Dave is saying that man traps and floor plan PBQs were in Security Plus, but it's moved down to A+.
Oh, really?
There could be some PBQs in 1102.
Okay, I didn't experience that in mine, so that's cool. I didn't know that.
He was also asking, AI be a bigger boon to security or to hacking?
So there's already Pen Test GPT out there, which can walk you through pen testing pretty much any system, as long as you have allowed to, obviously, access to it. Will it be a boon to security or to hacking? I mean, the two go hand in hand, right? It's going to be interesting. I think we're going to see kind of like we saw with the 80s and 90s a little bit. For those of you that are old as me, there's a big push for automation, robotic workforces, and there was a lot of, when that started coming out, there was a lot of challenges. I think we're going to see a lot of companies rush to AI, but eventually the pendulum will swing back the other way. We're never getting rid of AI technology, especially when, and again, keep in mind the AI we have now, guys, these things are really just kind of language models at this point. There's no AGI, right? There's no general intelligence out there that really works really well. But even the first generation of this AI that we are privy to is actually pretty amazing. It's going to be helpful, but again, it just depends. Do they learn the 3 laws, right? Yeah, one AI trying to break in, another defending. We'll sit back and watch and make bets. Yeah, that might be it. It may very well be hitting the nail on the head there. Cyber wars. Yeah, not everybody encounters those specific PBQs in the pool. Like I said, I've only gotten printer, cabling, termination. Oh, what else? I think that's it. I only remember the printer ones because they're so exhausting. Yeah, 3 seashells, right? John Spartan, you were fined, 2 credits for violation of the Moral something Act. I don't remember. At least Taco Bell wins the franchise wars, though, right? We can all look forward to eating burritos for life. For those of you that don't know, we're talking about the fantastic 90s movie Demolition Man. Definitely a must-watch. Right. We have gone quite off topic. Do I have any more questions on physical security? Any questions at all?
Kelsey's typing, so we'll see what she says.
All right, Kelsey. Hit me with a good one. Now the pressure's on. We'll hang out a few more minutes. She folds! No! You were so close. Oh, what movie reference? Come on. Oh, yeah. They're supposed to be making a Gladiator 2, I've heard, which will be kind of weird. All right. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.